Yeah, sure. Great question. Just to listen to people and to not always talk first, I think. And that's like, I think, a big sort of like unlearning of privilege sometimes. But like, it was amazing that nature, even though it threw us around in the boat at the beginning, it then like showed us like the best day. I feel like the Weasleys are like pretty go gently in their own inherent ways, right? If we are having fun and we're with these people who are really inspiring, people can be like, oh, that's cool. I want to be, that looks fun. I want to take part. It was really when I found the title of the book, did I really think, okay, I think I want to write this book. The dust settled and I was like, okay, I think I get the angle that I'm coming at here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Once and Always a Fanboy with me, your host, Chris Cantada Force. You probably know her as Ginny Weasley from Harry Potter, but off-screen, she has been carving out a new kind of magic, one rooted not in spells or wands, but in climate care, community, and conscious storytelling. She's an author and advocate, a filmmaker, and now the heart behind Go Gently, a beautifully intimate docuseries that invites us to reimagine our relationship with the planet, not through perfection, but through small intentional acts. So whether you grew up watching her in the wizarding world, or you're just now discovering the work she's doing in this one, I'm so excited to speak with my next guest. Fangirls and fanboys, Bonnie Wright! Woo!
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I can't wait to chat about all things past, present, and future. Yeah.
So welcome to the show. I've been looking forward to this for a while, so thank you so much for your time. When you named your book Go Gently, was there ever a version of you that wanted to go loudly first? What did you have to unlearn about activism, urgency, or even yourself to land on gentleness as the message?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Yeah, I guess for me, still keeping the word go kind of kept a little bit of urgency to it in the sense that it is a moving call to action, some sort of need. But I think gently really came from my kind of unlearning, I think, of like what sustainable action is in the sense of sustainable to like be able to keep going at it and keep that underlying strength. I think the more and more I met incredible activists who really on the front lines of climate justice, climate crisis, the more I realized, how steady that understanding is of sort of like how change takes a really long time. And how to manage kind of frustrations and how sometimes it's really important to be really angry and how other times it's really important to kind of listen and take a back seat and just trying to observe and understand the systems that are at play that you're trying to kind of change for the better. So the gently really came from a sense of like, until we are gentle with ourselves and our local environments and relationships, I don't think we can sort of like comprehend change on a big level. And there was this idea of like being gently to ourselves is the same idea as being gently to the planet because we are part of the planet. We are nature. So that was sort of it was really when I found the title of the book, did I really think, okay, I think I want to write this book. It kind of galvanized and sort of the dust settled and I was like, okay, I think I get the angle that I'm coming at here.
You came from the filmmaking world where sustainability isn't often the priority. When did you start to feel that disconnect between the world you were working in and the values you were growing into?
Yeah, I think for me, there's two sides of it. There's like the storylines you're seeing play out in movies and sort of pop culture worlds. And then there's the actual behind the scenes of filmmaking itself. I think for me, I was becoming growingly aware of, particularly my kind of way into the climate was really my care for the ocean and understanding like plastic pollution and the pollution that was happening there. So I started looking in my own life, like how I was, connecting with single-use plastics. And obviously when I go to work, you think, oh my gosh, like all this, hundreds of people on the Harry Potter sets every day and the reality of that consumption and then the reality of building things and making things, like what was the afterlife of a lot of these sets and props and things like that. So I definitely became hyper aware of sort of seeing that was just one pocket of one, film in a massive industry. And then for me, I think I was mainly most focused on that, the kind of behind the scenes. And then I think over time, I've become actually more interested or let's say seen more power in just the stories we're actually telling. I think I very much grew up in an era of like end of the world movies, which I'm a massive fan of. Like I love sci-fi dystopian films and that kind of extreme place that we could imagine humans like in their worst ways taking us to. But then I've been really interested in like, what if we had those amazing stories and we still played into those genres, but we showed humans still with some friction and great storylines, but we showed humans getting it right and not necessarily needing to be the center of the story, but just like the general day to day. Like imagine if we just saw characters in stories that were already inhabiting like good kind of day-to-day habits that were mindful to the planet. It doesn't need to be the storyline, but it's just like a normal newer status quo of like life. Or if you're looking at those more sort of sci-fi end of the world kind of stories, like what if we flip them on our head and we sort of show like this amazing future we could get to if we were doing kind of better. And I think for me, like young audiences kind of deserve those stories because they're growing up in a time where like the narrative is like things aren't good, like full stop, that's it. Whereas like, what if not? Like, we need to see this future we're all trying to like work towards so we can like have this like utopia, that we're kind of aiming towards.
Your road trip with Patagonia is a mix of nature documentary and soul-searching buddy comedy. How did your contrasts inform the show's rhythm or emotional highs and lows?
Yeah, I think it was important for Patty and I to make a show that obviously was about sort of championing climate stories and visiting people on our road trip who are doing great things around the climate in their local environment. But I think at the end of the day, you need a great entertaining TV show too, in the sense that like what are things that the audience could like feel some similarities to. And I think that kind of best friend road trip kind of fun idea of things going wrong, figuring things out, kind of ending up in odd places, like those human stories are as important as the sort of climate stories we were kind of talking about. So that was really important for us, just to show like humans being silly and funny and kind of like figuring it out and not being this kind of perfect polished story. And really, the main story, whilst obviously it's us too, is really us having the opportunity to like pass the microphone to these people who are doing great things in their local communities.
I love that moment when Win said, "Let's be bad until we're good and let's figure it out."
Yes.
What's one sustainability struggle or everyday habit you haven't broken yet that reminds you you're still learning too?
Oh, yeah. For so much of my like climate journey, I've just been sort of like thinking about my own sort of world and impact. I think becoming a parent, you suddenly are thinking about so many different things. So I feel like that's a constant like low and growing experience, which is really interesting because there's just so many more things that a child like wants or is interested to, and you're like growing up in an environment of other children wanting different things. So that's kind of been an interesting way to sort of like let go a little bit. But yeah, I guess for me, I'm always trying to find new, better ways to sort of travel, I think is a big thing. I have my family back in England, so I go to see them. But when we like choose to go on holidays, vacations, like we've really tried to kind of, when we are just here at home, just go camping and doing different things that kind of similar to the road trip have that kind of smaller impact. And that's kind of important, I think, to me, and sharing that with my son to show that you don't have to go really far to have a great adventurous time. So I think I'm trying to sort of lean more into that, just looking at that impact.
One of my favorite segments was when you visited the Raptor Center and I learned what mal imprinting was. Like, I was so fascinated how birds could actually imprint on humans.
Yes.
For you, as someone experiencing all these things firsthand, was there ever a moment during the entire trip where you felt emotionally caught off guard while filming? Like, where the lesson hit closer to home than expected?
Yeah, I think there were many times. I think it was honestly just people's like personal story of like what brought them into the work that they do. I think often, there was a real personal moment or impetus to like bring them into this work, or potentially through the work that they were doing, there was some of their own kind of healing going on, which I think was kind of interesting. I remember we go in the Oregon dunes, kind of like tracking for animals, and Pina and So, who have an organization called Queer Nature that sort of do sort of like tracking sort of workshops. And it was just really interesting to hear their story and see how sort of this sense of belonging they had found through kind of like tapping into the animal world and trying to sort of like understand the life of these animals they were tracking through the marks that they lay in the sand or whatever. And it was just really interesting to be like, wow, there are just so many very specific ways that you can interact with nature. I think that's what's cool, that there's just so much opportunity for people. There isn't maybe just the one way you've maybe seen environmentalism or conservation. I think that's been quite a narrow view. So I think it was just moments like that when people shared like what this work had meant to them and how it had changed them, or maybe brought relationships in their life closer or a better understanding of who they were. I think they were just those small moments of like, wow, this work is, I'm really pleased with making this show and I'm getting the opportunity to talk with these people to just learn more about human beings.
So you have this beautiful way of making people feel heard. It never feels like you're rushing towards a solution, but really sitting with someone. Was there a moment in your life that shaped how you listen to people?
Yeah, I think for me, I've had the great opportunity and privilege of being in films like Harry Potter, getting to have this incredible experience of learning and growing and exposure to the world and meeting amazing, talented people. And I think my biggest lesson in kind of sitting with that has been just to listen to people and to not always talk first, I think. And that's like, I think, a big sort of like unlearning of privilege sometimes when you are trying to, or particularly work in like more climate justice space, to really listen to the people who are actually on the front lines of these issues, of being more directly affected by the kind of injustices within the climate world. So I think it's been a massive learning of just listening and just how much better a perspective you can have when you just take a bit more of a back seat sometimes. And I think that's my goal as a storyteller in the kind of documentary space, is sort of just passing the microphone and amplifying the stories that don't get, heard or as much kind of screen time as others. And I think that's the same when it comes to also like the non-communicating living beings of the world, right? There's so many, we're just one species amongst, hundreds, thousands, millions. So it's always interesting to think like, even just slowing down to bother to listen to, the birds chirping in the morning, all those kind of things. I think it's just like a practicing of slowing down, which I think for us in these times, everything is so fast. The way that we, consume media and do different things. I think that's what I love about listening to podcasts and longer form media, that you actually do get to like slow down and just listen to someone. I think I think people are leaning into those forms of media a bit more rather than these quick, 15-second something.
So since my podcast is called Once and Always a Fanboy, I'm curious, what are you currently fangirling over? Like, are you binge watching a show? Are you listening to music a bit more in the past few days?
Yeah, sure. I'm actually going to see one of my current favorite artists tonight. She's a British singer called Olivia Dean. And I'm going to be the like girl buying the merch, the t-shirt, the everything. She's definitely my version of, I don't know, people's obsession with Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish of the world. She's more my vibe. So I'm excited to see her tonight. I feel like as well, it's like you don't get to see enough live music. So I'm very grateful to see her. And then I was a bit late to the like all the Sarah J. Maas books, like A Court of Thorn and Roses and all those things. So I quickly read those 5 books recently. So I've been into a bit of a kick on the kind of folklore fantasy kind of books, kind of in that sort of young adult sort of world. Yeah, I've kind of been reading the next like book project I'm trying to work on is a fiction book that I've been working on as an idea for like 8 years. It's been a long road, and I'm planning to sort of write it for like a YA audience, I think, or middle grade audience. So I've been doing a lot of kind of reading in that kind of genre and age range.
I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
If the go gently mindset had been part of your life during the Harry Potter years, what small climate-friendly habit do you think you might have tried to bring onto set, whether for yourself or even inspired by how Ginny might have approached it?
Yeah, sure. I feel like Ginny would have done it in a very good, honest way. I don't think she would like scream about it, but she would just silently go and kind of like make stuff happen, which I kind of admire about Ginny's character. She's not necessarily like super extroverted, but she's very powerful and strong. Um, yeah, I think just small ways of like looking at the afterlife of different things, like how could we recycle better? What is the afterlife of these sets and costumes and different things? And like, are there ways to be more mindful in like the how we're sourcing the food that everyone eats? I mean, there was so much food cooked every day for everyone. Like, how can that be a little bit more conscious? I think, or how was the studio's energy being powered and things like that. I mean, I imagine a lot of energy was being used in the massive sets that we were working on. So I think things like that would have been things that I would looked at, just sort of like the energy production and the afterlife of things. I mean, I think the beauty of Harry Potter is that everything was kept and archived because they already knew that people would want to see all these things. So I don't really think much was kind of anything of value was definitely not thrown away. Like they kept all the costumes, all the incredible props, all the sets are still standing today. So I think that definitely saved a lot, knowing that there was real worth and value to these things and objects because, fans and people wanted to get up close to them. So I think that's pretty cool to know that actually a lot of it is still being enjoyed.
So just like what you said, Ginny Weasley is known for being quietly powerful, a trait that's easy to overlook. As someone who's also channeled power through gentleness in your recent work, do you think people underestimated that about you too?
Oh, I guess maybe they just like didn't know. I feel like a lot of people will just have their relationship to me through the character I played, maybe rather than unless they have shown an interest in following the things I'm doing, and my personality. Maybe they didn't know. I mean, I've definitely had people who have kind of been interested in my work because they were first, a fan of Ginny, and then they'd be like, oh, all these other things are so cool that you're doing. Or the flip side, people have been like found my work because of more the sustainable side of things and like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were, in Harry Potter. So I think people find you through different ways. And I also think sometimes it's hard to really show your full self. I think, I mean, we always see like a version of someone, right? Unless we've listened to every single interview they've ever been in, you're kind of only kind of pulling together bits and moments of what you understand of the person. So yeah, I think it's been amazing to have the opportunities to express more of myself, whether that's through like these pieces of work I've made, or whether it's just actually getting the opportunity to meet people in person, which I get to do a lot, which I think is really nice. I think nothing beats like actually meeting and talking to people who have been fans of the series and of my work generally.
So if you were to make a documentary called Go Gently Hogwarts Edition,
Yeah.
what part of wizarding life would you explore? Sustainably sourced Quidditch gear or low-waste feasts in the Great Hall?
Yeah. I feel like the Weasleys are like pretty go gently in their own inherent ways, right? They like hand-me-down robes. They're all about kind of, passing on their stuff. I don't think Mrs. Weasley's buying anything new very often. She's making it herself. She's knitting the jumpers. She's probably buying the secondhand stuff. Like I think they're actually a pretty inherently go gently family, I would say. But I mean, I don't know if you had the whole, magic at your fingertips. I mean, just imagine the kind of work that you could do on a large scale. I often think like a lot of the problems that we have in this muggle world, like for instance, I don't know, statistics like we could feed the world 2 times over with the amount of food waste that we create, where there's people, who don't have anything to eat. So I think how could we use magic to like better distribute the things that we have? I think that would be an amazing thing to do, when travel's not a problem for magicians in the sense of, traveling, apparating and different things like that. So I think that is, I guess they definitely more sustainably travel because they don't need to get on an airplane. So I definitely would make sure people do that and see the world. And yeah, I think just Hogwarts could probably maybe not have such abundant feasts, lots of food, be a bit more mindful of the way they're cooking. Or there's so many acres, I'm sure, that Hogwarts has. They could grow their own food. I think that would be a massive thing. Probably not in the Forbidden Forest. That would be maybe some people will come and eat the food, scary, scary animals. But I'm sure they have fields and fields of space. So I feel like they should definitely grow all their own food, compost all their own food. Um, and that could be a whole additional lesson.
If you had to write Ginny a letter now, not from Bonnie the actor, but Bonnie the adult who's been through life, climate advocacy, and filmmaking, What would you want her to know about growing up?
I think just to like not try to be anyone else, which I don't think she does, honestly. I think she's quite herself. Like I always say, she's like unapologetically herself. I think she just is who she is. And I think she, growing up with all those brothers, is kind of like, I'm just going to be me. I don't need to sort of be the wildest person in the room. So yeah, just to keep being her like strong, assured self, keep playing Quidditch, trust in like love, I guess, which I think she does. She's in it for the long run. And just have fun. I think maybe she's a bit too serious sometimes. I would say have lots of fun.
So, if someone asks you to tell just one story from your road trip, the one that always sticks, makes you laugh, or tugs at something, what would it be? Was it releasing the hawk, planting a tree, or Wynn's reverse parking adventure?
I feel like the most extreme day I felt we didn't show the boat. We go out to the Channel Islands, and like the boat ferry trip that we took out there was the worst like seasickness I've ever had in my life. Like so bad that I was like, "Oh my gosh, we have to go back today." The whole time I was worried about the trip back. And I also knew, okay, when we arrive at these islands, we've got a kayak like round the island for like hours. Like I don't know if I have it in my physical self to do this. But it was just like this roller coaster of a day, like being so excited in the morning because I'd never been to those islands, then feeling so terrible on the boat that I was like, what am I doing whilst the cameras were, rolling? And then we got there and I was like, okay, we're going to get on these kayaks. And you're like, okay, I still feel sick, but okay, let's do this. And then just being absolutely sort of just amazed at the kind of kelp forest that we kayaked over and this massive sort of like waves that were crashing over the rocks and just like hearing about the island and the just all the wildlife and just having this like extreme amazing moment. And then this journey I was so worried about on the boat journey home ended up being like the calmest, stillest, best boat ride. And we saw these like incredible whales like breaching. And I was like, wow, that was an emotional day. But like it was amazing that nature, even though it threw us around in the boat at the beginning, it then like showed us like the best day. So I think it was just moments like that when you're filming a show, you got to like, the show must go on, you keep going. So it was very much one of those days where we kept going, but the day turned around and it was just a really unique experience.
For influencers or content creators who care about the planet but don't necessarily want to talk about climate change publicly, maybe because they don't want to sound preachy or something, what's one thing they can quietly do behind the scenes that might still ripple out and inspire their followers in unexpected ways?
Yeah, sure. I also think even if you do maybe want to integrate some of these stories into your content, I think I have learned that the most impactful, like inspiring way to do anything is just to like do something joyously rather than tell people something is bad or taking something out of your life. How can you actually put something into your life as like additional extra that's a climate kind of win? I think often we always assume that if we're going to be more environmentally conscious in the content we make or in our behind the scenes life, it's going to inherently be about taking something out of our life and living without something. But I really don't believe that that's true. And that's what I really tried to write in my book, that actually there are these things that you can like add to your life and they can actually feel quite abundant and exciting and they can be better for the climate. So I think know that I think the best way to inspire change is when you're like doing something and you look like you're having fun. People are always going to want to do that and that's the idea of our TV show. Like if we are having fun and we're with these people who are really inspiring, people can be like, oh, that's cool. I want to be, that looks fun. I want to take part, rather than like, oh, now I feel bad. I do those things. No one changes through like shaming someone. But yeah, and your behind the scenes things, I think, whether it's your day-to-day life, if you're running kind of a small business, how can you look at the way that you interact with, different, things that you use online, different, how the kind of, companies you support. I think we all buy things every day, right? Or we have subscription to things every day. Like how can we seek transparency behind the kind of companies that we are investing in? Because, how we spend our money and the choices we make are, sometimes as powerful as kind of the way we vote. So I think whether that's just looking at the food you buy, I don't know, the bank account you have, like all these different ways that we're kind of investing in things, there are better there are better companies out there that are kind of have the planet in mind. And it really doesn't take much to research those things. I think now we live in a time where luckily loads of people have done great research in all this stuff. So I think, and also there are loads of content creators out there making great videos around all these things. So I think people can just, if that's the way they like to be influenced and learn, is by listening to other content creators. I think there are really loads of authentic, great storytellers out there.
That's it. Thank you so much for your time. I just want to share. So when I was a kid, even until like high school, the books I read were only school books. Like it wasn't my thing at all. But one day in like third year high school, I picked up my sister's copy of The Sorcerer's Stone and I couldn't put it down. That time, I think 4 books were out already. So I went through them really straight. And that's how I got to reading for pleasure and not just in school. Needless to say, I love the movies. And so getting to speak with you today has been one of the highlights of my fanboy life. So thank you so much.
I love that. Yeah, my older brother, Lewis, was who got me into Harry Potter books. He was the one who had the idea of me playing Ginny. So grateful as well for my sibling to have gotten into the Harry Potter books first. And yeah, I feel like I meet so many kids who like are the same. Like they are like, oh, I don't like to read or school. And then they actually read Harry Potter or books they love. And it's like inspired readers. Like I meet teachers and parents and librarians who are like so grateful that Harry Potter's actually inspired lots of kids to read, which is so important that we keep doing.
Maybe I had a little bit of a crush on Ginny during
I love it. I mean, what's not to love? She's amazing.
This was such a pretty cool experience. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too, Chris. Thank you so much for your interest in Go Gently. I really appreciate it.